Ryan, we're here at Thornby Park. Thornby has a lot of history behind it. It's not just a, how can I say, an empty piece of ground that someone decided to develop. It was part of large citrus plantations, to call them that, groves that were all through this area that were pretty well wiped out by the freezes that came through. And the Thornby House was located here, among other buildings that were on the property over the years. Now, Thornby Park is special because it was set aside, had many partners working with the city on it. The city was only one of them. We had Volusia County, which is made up the ECHO Grant program. We had Volusia Forever was part of the program. We've worked with all these groups together, the Enterprise Preservation Society, to develop this into a first-class facility for the city and the county residents, and for, truthfully, visitors who come into the city. I'll let you, if you would, please tell us a little bit about the playground standing beside us here.
Yes, this was a outstanding, all-inclusive, accessible playground. So it's definitely wheelchair accessible. A lot of the amenities. We made sure to put a nice PIP, the pour-and-play product that allows the wheelchair movement. Has some accessible swings and other amenities, so every child can have opportunity to be on a playground and actually play and interact on the playground appropriately. You know, so this is, you know, this is a very inspiring. It's actually the inspiration. Yes. Mm-hmm. So, you know, and that leads us to, you know, also, you know, other parts in our future design. It somewhat inspired some of our design for the trail that we wanted to put in place here.
Okay, so the trail and the development, now there was a small trail here, a dirt trail, okay? And the inspiration, of course, from Inspiration Playground being ADA friendly was to try and build a trail, a nature trail that was also ADA friendly.
Yes.
Okay, so what we've developed here is boardwalks, special mulch that will support a wheelchair. There's an outside classroom that can be used. We built bridges, we built ramps, all of this for the ability someone who is challenged, whose ADA needs, can utilize this trail and have an experience with nature.
Yes, it'd be an easy transition from one surface to another.
Come in on the concrete right here. We have a sidewalk going around, and we have a boardwalk here. Let's take a few minutes and let's walk through the park.
Yes.
Ryan, this project was called Thornby Here, H-E-R-E. Now the H-E-R-E stands for Historical, Educational, Recreational, and Environmental. It's really a great project to open up an area for folks who want to come in and visit with nature. The birds, the animals, the plants, everything about the fauna of the area. We're developing signs that will describe the different trees, different types of plants growing in the area. We can't be all inclusive on that because there are many plants, and we're trying to keep it to where they are native plants. There are a few plants in the park that are historically non-native plants, and we'll point a few of those out, but for the most part we've tried to keep it back to where only the native species are in the park itself.
And actually being on top of this you know, platform, if anyone has been in this park when it was you know, just a basic trail
before it was developed, yeah.
You know, we had uneven grounds, so everyone didn't have that access.
Oh yeah, I mean it sloped like that along here where we are, so you know, someone in a wheelchair, someone having to use some type of assistance in walking, it would have been extremely difficult for them. So this is a major contribution that the city and the different groups that worked with us have put together. And we have a nice shady area coming up ahead, and we'll enjoy it some too.
Great.
Ryan, at the end of the ramp here, coming from the parking lot area and the playground, one of the first things you see as you come up is, truthfully, the outdoor classroom. It's a unique feature that we put into the park that will allow science classes from schools, homeschoolers to come together and have science classes here also. Audubon uses it before they start tours of the area. They may have a tour of Thornby Park. It may be a tour of one of the other eco parks that we have. But this was a good starting point, gathering around. We were able to obtain these granite stone benches. They were columns. Okay, we laid them on their side and they made great benches as far as that goes. They were repurposed and we got them from the city of Sanford. So, you know, a lot, as I've said before, a lot of people came in together to make all of this happen.
And I can definitely see a class, you know, or school come in for a field trip, you know, to sit down, especially if they're going to be covering nature or maybe even bird watching. You know, they sit down and identify some different things. So I do understand and really think this is a hit with having that classroom structure.
And just standing here, I see cabbage palms, laurel oaks, slash pines, palmettos, the lower ones here.
So looking at this area, do we have to clear out a lot of trees?
Actually, we did very little clearing in the area here. It was sort of a natural open area. There was underbrush, just scrub that had to be cleared out. And we tried to be as gentle with the area as we could, even as we cleared it. There was no bulldozer came in or anything like that. Most of it was cleared by hand. Like I say, it's a unique area. The roof is, you know, is just as it was created. Trees up above us here that give us shade. So, you know, it's a very, very nice area. In regards to trees, yeah, I can look around. I mean, a classroom setting here, first of all, you see magnolias, you see fairly large cabbage palms, smaller cabbage palms, palmettos, laurel oaks. You can see some slash pines that are very, very tall. Now, slash pines are probably 30, 40 years old to get to that side. Over there you have live oaks back behind us, some very large magnolias back over on that side. There's a lot of underbrush in this area on the outside, but not on the inside. So it's a perfect area for a science group to come in and say, okay, let's start discussing the different fauna in the area, the different plants and the types of trees. There are books out there, you look them up, that type of thing. So there's a lot that can be learned in the area. As I mentioned before, Audubon also uses it to start off their field trips on birding. So it does get use, okay? It has a lot of, it was a good concept and it worked. And I'm always glad when we think of something and push it through and it turns out that it works. Ryan, where we're walking right now on the trail, mulch trail, okay? If you'll notice on the sides of it, it goes up. This is what's called a sunken road. Simply being, there was a road that was through here, and over the years, people walking, horses pulling wagons, everything, all the up and down commerce on it, wore it down.
You mentioned horses pulling wagons.
Horses pulling wagons. Okay, okay, that's a good point. We're talking about the early 1800s, all the way up through the invention of the automobile and its use into the area, which is the early 1900s. This road was originally part of the military trail that started here at Enterprise and ran all the way over to the Titusville area. Now, when I say military trail, it was first developed during the Second Seminole War. There was, in this area of Thornby Park, Fort Kingsbury, which was a Second Seminole War structure, fortification. And we're talking the late 1830s at this time. So the area with, you know, large trees like the oaks and everything here that go with them, all around at that time, it had to be cleared. Now, currently it's called the Old Taylor Road, because Cornelius Taylor was the first civilian. He came in the, I think it was the very early 1840s, 1841, 1842, I'd have to look it up, but he and a group of about 20, 25 families came in and settled this area, okay? And the road was named after him because the produce either had to be shipped out, everything they grew, okay, and everything they brought in that they didn't grow on the farms themselves had to be brought in either by boat or by the military road. And since he was the primary person in this area, Cornelius Taylor, it was called the Old Taylor Road. Still known somewhat as that today. There are only sections of it that can still be found, and this is one of them. So it is an extremely historic area. And again, Fort Kingsbury was in this general area also. Ryan, what we have here is what's commonly known as the railroad bridge. Now, back in the 1800s, early 1900s, when this was still a major citrus area, okay, you had a lot of produce that had to be taken down to the river, okay, put on ships, and then taken up to Palatka, Jacksonville, and from there, anywhere in the U.S. that it went. But the only sensible way was to either use wagons, which was very slow, or to have some type of a railroad system, and that's what this was. It was a narrow gauge railroad system. We surmise it was probably pulled by mules, okay? Didn't have a steam engine, which would have been very, very expensive. And looking at it, all we had here when we started looking at developing the Thornby Here project was 2 rails. That was it. So we said, you know, let's try and find a way to replicate, to build back the railroad bridge. Now, I'd take you out on the bridge and we'd stand on it, but that's always dangerous. You never go out in a railroad bridge because you never know when a train might come.
Yeah, I think I'll pass.
Okay, good enough. All right, so that's the history of the railroad bridge.
Exciting.
Ryan, what we have here is what we simply call the bridge. When it was the original trail, you had a ditch here, and each side of the ditch was 6 to 8 feet of slippery mud and leaves on each side, so water standing in the center of it. So in no way in the world someone who had any type of disability would be able to get through this area, because it was very, very hard for everybody else to. Your feet just spinning as you tried to get up the other side. People would throw branches into the bottom to step on so they did not have to stand in the water. So we developed a bridge that came across. Now, the ditch itself was a drainage canal. Citrus does not do well where there's water sitting around the roots. Roots will rot. So they dug the canal down to the lake to allow this area to drain so they could plant citrus trees. And again, citrus was the large industry in this area. So you had the railroad based on citrus, you had the Old Taylor Road, which carried citrus back and forth and supplies from here to the coast. The railroad going down to the lake here where the steamers would come in and pick up the fruit. So a lot of this area was based around that, and a lot of the changes, geographical changes in the area, were because of that type of thing. So it made a nice feature. It made it ADA friendly, and we're surrounded here. If you look, you have roses back here, which are a heritage plant, and you have ginger. This is a huge stand of ginger, and you can see it blooming right now. It's very fragrant. And again, these are heritage plants. They're not native to the area, but we didn't want to rip them out because they were planted here by the early frontier folk who came in and settled this area. Large palmettos, huge pines in this area. Large oaks. We're coming into what is known as an oak hammock area, which very large magnolias, very large live oaks. We'll take a look at some of them.
Now, what is this?
Well, it's a good question. This is called the treasure tree. It's, I don't know, maybe it's urban legend or whatever it was, but obviously at one time the tree was looking to be hollowed out, as nature will do on large live oaks like this. And this is one of the largest live oaks here in Thornby Park. But the folks who lived here decided, well, if we bricked it up, okay, the tree will naturally heal over. And you can see where it's doing that here. It used to be like this on both sides, but it's grown out along that side to almost heal itself up. But the urban legend part of it was that children would come here and I guess adults, whatever like that, would hide little trinkets or something for them in there. I don't know if they watched To Kill a Mockingbird and Scout and Jim finding things in the tree, but you know, it leads back to that. Whether it was true or not, I don't know. But it makes a good tale, and it's carried on for many, many years. The folks in the area all know about it. Okay, we asked the folks not pull the bricks out. We're going to end up trying to replace some of them like that and make it, you know, back like it was to begin with when it was first bricked up. But right now, it's a nice feature. It's something to talk about, and we will have a sign here describing, you know, what it's all about.
Amazing.
Walking through, people look at something like this dead tree. Actually, it's a limb off the great oak here that we were just by talking about. But people look at it and say, why doesn't Park and Recreation get in here and cut it up and clear it out? What you have to realize on something like this is a whole ecosystem in itself. Okay, everything that feeds off of a dead tree and the leaves on the ground and under the bark here on the tree. So it's all part of the natural nature experience. So if it's not blocking the trail, then you leave it, as long as it's not a danger to anyone. And that's what this is. Makes a great photography point also. Lean up against it and get your picture taken.
Still looks nice and sturdy.
It does. And this is what they built ships out of in the 17 and 1800s, the wooden ships. Ships of wood and men of iron. And it was the live oak limbs that they used because they grew, instead of straight, the limbs would grow out and bow down, and it made the ribs on the sailing ships. Just a point of interest.